All right. Today, we're jumping into a philosophy that's pretty radical, but it also comes with a very practical, step by step guide for making real changes in your life. This isn't just a bunch of abstract theory, it's a how to guide for fundamentally changing how you experience the world. So let's dive in. Let's just start with this one big, kind of provocative question that's at the heart of everything we're about to talk about. What if the world you see around you isn't some fixed, objective thing? What if it's actually something you are actively choosing every single moment? This idea, well, it's the key to everything. Okay, so here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with a core premise, then we'll get into the mechanics of how attention works. After that, we'll cover two key actions, creating and disengaging. And finally, we'll talk about what it means to become a beacon for this new reality. All right, section one, a radically different premise. Look, before we can even get to the how-to, we've got to wrap our heads around the core belief system. This is the mindset you need for any of the actions we'll discuss to actually work. So the core concept is something called subjective energetic reality. Now, that sounds a little heady, but stick with me. It's basically the belief that there is no single objective universe out there. Instead, there are billions of individual realities all created and held in place by where we put our focus, our attention. What we call consensus reality is really just a set of widely shared opinions that we all keep alive with our collective focus. So, if reality is a choice, what are we choosing between? Well, this philosophy draws a really clear line in the sand. On one side, you have false wealth, things like money and power. On the other, you have true wealth, which is defined as autonomy and joy. In this worldview, money isn't really wealth. It's actually seen as a symbol of inner poverty because it shows you're dependent on outside systems instead of your own true internal freedom. And this leads to what is probably the most radical idea of all in this philosophy, the notion that even our most basic needs are just mental constructs. The fear of not having enough food or shelter, that fear is seen as the main tool of coercion that keeps us locked into the current system. So getting over that fear is seen as the first huge step toward real autonomy. Okay, section two, the mechanics of attention. So if reality is a choice, then our attention is the tool we use to make that choice. This is where the philosophy stops being theoretical and becomes a really practical, hands-on process. Think of your attention like currency. It's the energy you spend that literally builds your world. Wherever you put your focus, you're casting a vote for what you want to exist. And here's the crucial part, the difference between conscious and unconscious attention. If you're not deliberate about where you place it, you end up unconsciously choosing and propping up a reality that somebody else designed for you. So the entire practical application of this whole thing really boils down to two actions that you have to do at the same time. First, you create the new reality by actively paying attention to what you want, and second, you disengage from the old one by starving it of your attention. You have to do both. One without the other doesn't really work. Now for our first action, create and share. This is the positive, the generative part of the equation. It's all about how you use your attention to actively build the world that you actually want to live in. And I gotta say, I really love this quote because it completely flips the script on personal happiness. In this way of thinking, your joy isn't selfish at all. In fact, it's the single most powerful advertisement for this way of life. It's the living, breathing proof that a different choice is not only possible, but it's actually deeply fulfilling. So, how do we do this? Well, it's laid out in three pretty clear steps. First, actively create. Start real, tangible projects that line up with your values. A community garden, a skill-sharing group, an open source project. Second, share freely. Give away what you make, your art, your ideas, your skills, with no strings attached. This directly builds a reality based on abundance, not scarcity. And third, radiate joy. Just live your autonomous life as authentically as you can. This isn't about faking it, it's about finding that genuine fulfillment that just naturally attracts other people. Now for the other side of that coin, it's not enough to just build the new thing. You also have to stop propping up the old one. This next part is all about the quiet, non-confrontational, but incredibly powerful act of just withdrawing your energy. It's really that simple and that stark. The old system, the one you disagree with, it only exists because we all collectively agree to give it our attention. The way you dismantle it isn't by fighting it head-on. It's by simply turning away and letting it wither from neglect. So what does that look like in your day-to-day life? Well, first, choose your media and information consciously. Stop feeding on outrage-driven content that just reinforces a reality of conflict. Second, refuse to get sucked into arguments that only give energy to the very things you want to leave behind. Third, wherever you can, limit how much you rely on the traditional economy. Maybe trade skills or grow some of your own food. Every little act of self-sufficiency is an act of disengagement. It's all about consciously deciding where your energy will not go. And this brings us to our final section, which is about the ultimate goal of all these actions. See, this isn't about starting a revolution in the way we usually think about it. It's about something much more subtle, and, according to this philosophy, way more powerful. This is a really, really key distinction. The goal is not to convince or convert anybody. It's not about getting everyone to follow one leader or one ideology. It's about gathering, it's about finding the other people who are already on a similar wavelength, who are already asking the same questions, and are ready to choose a different path. This completely redefines your role. The point isn't to become some kind of leader with a bunch of followers. No, it's about being a practitioner who finds other practitioners. It's about building a decentralized network that's built on connection, not on control. And the how-to for this part? It's actually beautifully simple. First, just be the living proof. Embody those principles of joy and autonomy. Second, when you do talk about it, just speak from your own experience. Your personal story is way more compelling than any abstract theory. And third, create a space, whether it's online or, in your own living room, where other practitioners can find each other and connect. So, at the end of the day, it all comes down to this. Your method is to be the message. By living a life of autonomy and joy, you become the living, walking proof that another path actually exists. Your life itself becomes the invitation. And that leaves us right here with one final and I think pretty empowering question. If your attention is the currency you use to create your world, and your life is the proof of the choices you make, then the only thing left to ask is, what reality will you start creating? Right now, today.